Hey, you've made it to the podcast Recovery Captured, hosted by me, Shannon Louise, a certified recovery coach and self-verified addict. Join me on my journey through my recovery from mind-altering substances, eating disorders, depression, and much, much more. During this podcast, you'll hear my personal experience, thoughts, and opinions, as well as my guests' stories through their own recovery. I hope that you're able to take something away from this podcast and use it as a tool to help you see that your story is picture perfect. So, welcome, Veronica. Thanks for taking your time and coming on the podcast today.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Good. How are you today?
I'm doing well.
Good. All right, give us the fun facts. What are you in recovery for? How long have you been in recovery? And give us a fun fact.
Okay, so I'm in recovery for a few things. One is overcoming trauma and PTSD. I have a few big trauma events in my life that we'll probably get into, but the first one happened in 2006. But I really don't count myself as being in recovery from any trauma until September 2020. Mm-hmm. Second is bipolar disorder, and I got diagnosed with that and been kind of in the midst of recovery, still recovering, since February 2019. I've had a stint with drugs that ended in 2008, so that's been a long time, thank God. And I've been sober from alcohol since 2/2/22.
Oh, fun.
Yeah, I know. I'm like, that was a really good date to pick. I always remember it. And fun facts, I actually have two fun facts. I'm going to cheat a little bit. One, I have something in common with you. I figure skated for 10 years growing up.
Ah, I love it.
Yeah. So that's always my fun fact. But the other one kind of jumps more into my story is I'm a high school dropout. I ended up graduating with 2 math degrees cum laude. So
look at you.
Full circle.
I love it. So obviously we have to talk about the figure skating for a minute.
Yes, now. For sure. Yes, 100%.
Did you compete and do shows and stuff?
Oh yeah. I ended up, so I'm really tall and I'm a terrible jumper. So I ended up moving into ice dancing kind of later in my career. So I didn't get too far up in the freestyle, but I still did all the shows, all the competitions. I mean, we lived over an hour away from our ice skating rink and I went every day before school. Like my mom's an angel. I would tell my kids, pick a different sport. It's intense sport. It really takes up so much of your time and effort, but I wouldn't change it. I love growing up in that atmosphere. How about you? You love growing up in that atmosphere?
I absolutely love it. So my aunt was my coach for the 8 years that I figure skated. And my
beautiful.
My sister also figure skated, and then my brother did ice hockey. So it's like a family thing that
I love that.
Yeah, and I would compete and do shows, and I absolutely loved. It was a whole vibe and feeling.
Yes.
Getting up early and going to those competitions, and that anxiety and excitement about getting dressed and your hair done and going out practicing. I'm very fortunate, very, very fortunate that our high school had an ice rink. So I had to walk across the parking lot, and my siblings, we grew up in this ice rink. My siblings worked there, so I could go onto the ice in the morning for free by myself before
That's
school.
Amazing.
It was.
Oh my gosh. Nothing's better than ice time by yourself. And early in the morning too, and you're dead tired. And you're asleep walking out there, and then as soon as their blades hit the ice, just something I have goosebumps right now. I need to get out there. That's what I'm doing today now.
Well, I always say in my story, my first drug was skating.
Totally.
Because when my blades hit the ice, everything shifted.
It does. Oh man, I'm gonna start crying.
I love it. Do you still go?
Not very often, and so actually that's a big thing with my parents want me to teach my kids, and I just like, I haven't, which is bad. Now my daughter's 10. I'm like, sorry, kid, like we're starting late here. But I think it's been really painful. And I guess I'm just realizing that as I'm talking to you, to go back out, because like I quit when I thought I wanted, and I think I was ready to quit. I didn't see my career going any further with it, but when I quit was at the same time as like my first real big episode of trauma, and my first like big life event that kind of just like changed the trajectory of my life. And so some of the things like pre-trauma are really hard for me to go back to, because it's like I had this really, really, really like idyllic childhood. You know, figure skating, beautiful sport, and 3 brothers who are all athletic. My parents are still together, and my mom stayed home, and like everything was just really, really good until it really wasn't. And so, yeah, I guess it's sometimes it's hard for me to go back to those pieces of my life and remember how good it was.
Yeah, it's kind of like it's guilt. Like you left something so good when you thought it would be the best, or when you, I understand that because I stopped figure skating when I got into drugs,
Yeah.
which conveniently, not conveniently, but it was like a year after my high school graduation. That's kind of like when I fell off. I went to college and stuff like that.
Yeah.
It kind of happened naturally, but it was all because of drugs and alcohol. I stopped going to so many practices. I stopped this group that I was doing, and it was just drugs slowly took over. And so, yeah, the trauma, the pain, just it crept in and took everything that was enjoyable away.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And I mean, drugs and alcohol like are a form of, trauma. Like you're almost, perpetuating that. So yeah, no, I get it. It steals a lot from you. And especially I think because you said it was like right after high school, and that's like mine was my junior year of high school is when I ended up an ex-boyfriend raped me, and then he stalked me, and my parents luckily saw it happen, like saw him, like me breaking up with him and him not letting me go, and they moved me to Holland with some family. They were just like, you're getting out of here for your safety. And so that's why I didn't finish high school. It really just, it almost just like my life just felt like it just stopped right there. And with trauma and PTSD, they say like that's almost your brain does just kind of stop and get stuck in a place. So I'm like, great, have I not like matured since 17? So that would be great.
Well, for sure, because when you get, so I don't know if this is like a medical thing, but at least in AA, they say like when you get sober, you are reverting back to that age that where you first started. So I started using when I was 13. So when I got sober at 21, I am now that 13-year-old because I've been all those years learning how to cope, learning how to adult and finish out my childhood, like back to that. So yeah, I understand.
Yeah. And I ended up getting so bad, and I understand it a little bit more now, just why. I got such bad PTSD because like moving me out of my like safety and my support network and everything that I knew right after. And then like, so really what happened was like we had planned for me to leave, and I was in our town Boise for like 1 more week. And it happened in between like us getting the tickets and the passport and the plan to leave and actually leaving. And so I was somewhere I wasn't supposed to be. And I didn't want to tell my parents, and I got in a bad situation. And then 2 days later, I was on a flight to Holland, and I didn't tell my parents, like nothing. But I did tell the people that I was staying with, and they like just told them the story of what happened. And they were like, Veronica, that's rape. And I'm like, oh, that can't be, like, he didn't hit me, like things like that. And just, I don't know if my parents would have just sent me off then if they would have known before, just because like that's such a big trauma that you need to like be around people who know, love, and support you and keep some sense of safety there. But then at the same time, I'm like, well, maybe they still would have sent me just because he's obviously dangerous and obviously they couldn't keep me safe while I was here. But I've been reading a lot, and if you don't like kind of peel it early on, it just kind of grows. And so I ended up getting so bad. I have dissociative amnesia, which is like a very extreme case of like a dissociative disorder. And so I really don't remember like a year and a half of my life after that. Some of it I'm like, well, I do remember I started partying it. So some of it I probably don't remember just because of self-induced amnesia, you know what I mean? But but there's a lot of pieces of my life that I don't remember, and that actually kind of has carried through with my other traumas too, which I'm sure we'll get to. Yeah.
So this was junior year. So up to this point, we're a figure skater. We have a beautiful family, like
straight A student, like
yeah, like everything that like a quote unquote perfect childhood kind of scenario. Junior year, you're with a significant other and he abuses you. You leave for Holland, which is crazy. Where are you? Where did you grow up?
I grew up in Boise, Idaho.
Okay, so Idaho.
Yeah.
Okay, that's a big jump.
It is a big jump. So my dad, all my dad's side of the family is Dutch. And I actually, so growing up in this picture perfect childhood, and we had a lot of money. We had 4 kids. One of my brothers with special needs. We were all athletes. So and my dad worked out of town. So we had a nanny from Holland. And so that is who I ended up going and staying with, my previous nanny. So
how long were you there for?
4 months.
Okay.
Yeah.
4 months. And then you came back to Idaho.
Yeah. So we got like a restraining order for an extended restraining, a 5-year restraining order. So after my visa was up, we looked at going into schools there, but it was very clear that I could not participate. When I was in Holland, not only did I just never get over the time change, it was really, I never tried. I would stay up all night being like fearful of the dark and just watching Sex and the City because that was on in English. And then, and just sleep all day and just completely depressed. Like I was supposed to be doing school online and I was just failing, and it was like easy school. And I'm pretty bright, and I was a straight A student prior to this, and being around a lot of people gave me just overwhelming anxiety. So they tried to like find boarding schools for me or other types of school. They didn't want me to go back to my old high school. And it was just very clear that I was unable to participate in society in that sense at that point in my life. So came back to Boise, got my GED, and then that's kind of the time frame that I don't remember a lot until I found the lovely substance of cocaine.
My favorite.
Right? I know. God bless it.
Yeah, right? That definitely sent me in. Yeah. Now, during that time and thereafter, did your ex ever try to reach out to you, communicate with you?
Yeah. So we had a big circle, the same circle of friends, and I'm so freaking blessed in my life. I have the best friends that anybody could ever ask for, and I still have these friends. Like the majority of the friends I have today, I've had for over half my life, which is incredible. Like, so most of my friends just kind of like dropped him, but he was still like in our same like kind of scene. And so like would see him every once in a while out and about. And because with the restraining order, if you're at a public place, you're allowed to be at the same public place. You have to be a certain distance away, and you have to make no effort. Like if you accidentally, it has to be shown that it's like a big accident that if you were to run into this person, right? But we'd like be at a concert together, and he'd see me, and he'd like go the other way to go to the bathroom just so he could walk by me and like give me the eyes, like I'm still around, right? And so that happened a few times. But then 5 years later, the day after the restraining order expired, he found me on Facebook and started messaging me. So psycho, right? Yeah.
Yikes. And no communication ever since?
I've seen him a few times. Yeah, no, I've seen him a few times after the restraining order. He knew he didn't have a restraining order on me anymore. So I have seen him a few times. We've actually talked a few times. One of them was like this really, really healing talk where he like admitted all the wrong things he did and how he hurt me and like all this stuff. And it was like so beautiful. And then like I saw him like 2 months later, and he like pulls me aside and like puts his hand on my lower back. It's like, do you remember I didn't rape you? You wanted that. I'm like, oh, okay. So that, yeah, you are still a psycho. Never mind. Yeah, but he actually he moved, and so I haven't seen him in 10 years. And me and one of my friends just Googled him a little bit ago, and he's had like 3 domestic violence charges against him, and it's really, really awful. And I just am so grateful that my parents were strong for me when I couldn't be strong for myself, and really, really got me out of that situation. Because I was a 17-year-old girl who, this guy said he loved me, and I didn't really know what love looked like, and I would have probably kept going back to him. And I think the statistic is on average that women in domestic abusive relationships go back like 7 times before they finally leave for good. And I probably would have continued to go back to him.
It's impressive, at least for me, because with my situations, I never told anyone, right? It's impressive when I hear people say something right when it happens, because my individuals could have got charged, but they didn't, and they got to walk, Were you able to, you got a restraining order. Were you able to you were able to talk to your family about it and stuff, and kind of start that healing process, it sounds like.
Yeah.
And 20 years later.
with that one I did actually. So yeah, I found cocaine first before the healing. There was the falling down and the rock bottom for sure. So we tried to press charges, and everybody we talked to was like, it won't go anywhere. We're in Idaho, and you guys were in a relationship and had consensual sex prior to this. There's no way it's gonna be your word against his. You're gonna go up on the stand. You're very clearly traumatized. We think this would traumatize you further. We'll keep it on the record for as long as the what is that window that you can do things in. And they're like, if someone else comes forward, then we'll put you on the stand, then you'd have a better case. But no one else came forward. But yeah, so I tried to go to, my parents tried to put me in therapy as soon as I got back from Holland, but I was like so shut down, and I wasn't going, and I was just sleeping all day. And but I did have friends, so I tried to go out with friends, but it's like the only thing that I felt comfortable doing was just like drinking. And so then I found cocaine, and really that was like my life for a few months. It's a powerful drug that really can take over your life very quickly. And I hit rock bottom, and I looked in the mirror and I said, this cannot be how my story goes. It cannot be from such a high to him stealing something from me and me dropping the ball in the rest of my life. Like, yes, I've been dealt something that no one should have to deal with. And yes, it wasn't my fault. And yes, I was handed these cards, but I have to stop letting him steal more of my life. I have to get it together. So I moved in with some cousins in California and just really got away from the whole party scene. And again, I'm really grateful because I have such amazing friends, but the people that I was doing drugs with were not my true close circle of friends. So this is why I think that I was able to just like truly just drop that and never look back, is because I was able to drop all those quote unquote friends that I was doing drugs with and like never see them again. And I know when it is, and it's like, thank God at that point, I was only, this sounds weird, but thank God I was addicted to cocaine and not alcohol, like at that point, because like cocaine's not socially acceptable. Like you're not like, it's not like the t-shirts that say mommy needs Coke, you know, like as in the,
Yeah.
you know, like, and so I was able to just straight up just like cut that out so much easier. And really fall back into my other group of friends. And then that's when I started actually going to therapy and saying, okay, these maladaptive ways I have of like, I'm obviously trying to self-medicate and heal from this trauma on my own, and it's not working. I need to go to therapy. So that's when I went to therapy. I did like EMDR. I did some other forms of therapy. And that's when I ran, or I guess no, that wouldn't have been when I ran into my gig because I'd still have the restraining order. But anyways, I did a bunch of things and I was like, done, I'm healed, we're good to go, which is really funny looking back. So I do feel like I've kind of processed that first rape, that first trauma of my life.
EMDR, definitely. I talk about EMDR all the time, and I talk to people in my family or my coachees and stuff. Literally changed my life.
It is a life changer.
It was impressive.
It is. It's a big time. And actually, I was just thinking that as we'll get into some other things, I'm like, I think there's a few more memories I should probably reprocess through EMDR. I think my current therapist does not do it. But I have a lady that I was going to for that. So I was going to actually talk to him at our next session and be like, hey, should I just kind of like go get these two things reprocessed and then come back to the talk therapy? Because I like the therapy I'm doing now, but I do think just because I know EMDR works, and it works kind of quickly too, you know, or like quick is like it is faster than if you were to just like talk through things, you know. So it's hard work. So if anybody's going to EMDR, block out your schedule for the rest of the day. Do not go back to work. Do not try to go back to work after that one.
No, it is a lot of work. It's active work too. It's not just sitting there talking. It's physical, actual work. I love it. It changed my life, helped me heal in ways that I couldn't imagine.
Yeah. Exactly.
Okay, so we started all this, and you mentioned like what happens thereafter. We got into Coke, we stopped that, like what comes
and so then I'm about like 19 at this point. I get my GED, I go to college, I kind of drop in and out of college because I have undiagnosed bipolar at this point. So I'm like, sometimes I do really, really good, and then I'll just like fail and sleep all the time. And it's like very clear. And actually, and then I was talking to my therapist, I was like, I think I have bipolar disorder, and like self-diagnosed, like WebMD, right? And they're like, no, I'm a medical professional, you have PTSD. And I'm like, oh, okay. Turns out you can have two mental health conditions at one time, which I'll find out much later in life. But yeah, so I kept getting put on antidepressants, which would make me like literally go crazy, because if you have bipolar disorder, a lot of times antidepressants can actually make you go manic, which I'm like, cannot believe that nobody saw. But also with bipolar, whenever I was good, I stopped going to therapy because I'm like, I'm healed. And then then I didn't understand like why I was better and then not better and better and not better. But that's just the theme throughout my life until I was diagnosed at like 31. Okay, so I go back to college. I'm like dropping in and out of college. I go through phases where I'm partying big time. Luckily, no drugs, but like drinking heavily. Like I started drinking at 16, just, you know, in high school, friends, parties, but it was always a big theme in my life, but always like the same as where all my other friends were, I guess. So I didn't feel like I had a problem. Although if I would have ever when I don't drink, I just do better, but we'll get into that too. So in and out of college, in and out of partying. And then at 22 years old in college, a big night out drinking. A lot of our friends come back and stay at my house because I live the closest to the bars. And one of my friends comes in in the middle of the night and I get raped again. And that is when I shut down.
Mm-hmm.
The next day, so like after it happened, like it's such a cliche, but I just like went to the bathroom and threw up and just sat in the shower, and the next day I decided, like, I'm a bad person. I can't believe that I've been partying. I can't believe I just let that happen. I'm done. And I packed up and drove to California just to go back to my cousin's house.
Mm-hmm.
I just like could not face that person. I could not face our other friends. I could not do it. And I completely internalized everything that happened. And I just tried to not think about it. And I did a really good job of not thinking about it, to the point where 4 years later I thought about it a lot when I was, driving, and I was like just blaming myself. I can't believe that I said no, but then I still did it. Like I thought I did it.
Mm-hmm.
If that makes sense. Like, so, I left and I just didn't think about it again. I came back to Boise. 4 years goes by, and at this point, I have a baby. I'm married. I think I have 2 babies. I'm married to one of his friends, and we're all together. And then the flashback happens, and I was like, "Oh my God, I cannot believe that I did that." And I was walking, pushing the stroller. I remember vividly. He was walking in front of me. I'm sitting next to my husband and pushing the stroller. And I look at him and I'm like, I will never, ever remember this again, ever.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't. I didn't. It took until September of 2020, just driving down the road, working on all this trauma and doing all this counseling and therapy and doing all this other work, and leave a counseling session. I'm driving down the road, I'm driving home, and and all of a sudden it floods back to me. I slam on my brakes, I pull over, and I just remember it. And that was 10 years after it happened.
Mm.
It's amazing what your brain will do to protect you. It really is.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Did he know of the previous one?
Who? The second guy that raped me?
Yeah.
No,
No.
I don't think so. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I mean, he was a very trusted friend.
And you said you blamed yourself.
Oh, totally.
Did you blame yourself for both?
I had stopped blaming myself for the first one at that point, just because I had done enough processing. And I say that, but every once in a while, I'll go back and really think I shouldn't have been in that house. I knew better. I wasn't supposed to be there. And like, why didn't I fight back harder? Right. But then it's like, okay, well, why didn't I fight back harder? Because I was like a 17-year-old girl, and this guy was like 6'5" and like 200 pounds and on top of me. Like, you can't fight. There's a point where your body knows that fight, flight, or freeze. Your body knows when to stop fighting at some points to keep it safe, right? So I do not blame myself for the first one, or usually. I have moments of weakness where I'll still go back and really feel like that I could have, and I could have done things differently. I could have not been at a house that I knew he could have shown up at. Like, I didn't know he was there, but I could have listened to my parents and not snuck out of my house that night, and then the second time it's like, I don't know what I would have done differently. Punched him, like, because I was at that point somewhat sober, but he was wasted. So in my mind, I'm like, he didn't know what he did, and I let him do that, and he would be so appalled if he knew. And I just internalized everything. I'm like, this guy's a good guy. He would never do that. So therefore, I must have been opening myself up to him in some way. But that's just not true. That's not what happened. And, been working on that one since 2020 with therapists and stuff. And it's like, no, that isn't true. Like, I said no. I pushed back, and he kept pushing. And especially with a second trauma, a previous trauma, your body just goes into fight, flight, or freeze mode so much quicker. So.
Yeah. And, with traumas like this, it's so easy to blame yourself.
Yeah.
And it's so easy to justify it.
Mm-hmm.
But even if you're intoxicated, even if you're not supposed to be there, it doesn't give any right to someone to do that.
Exactly.
Yes,
exactly.
There are wrongs that occurred for, around it, but it still does not give someone the right to do that. I could walk outside butt naked, and it doesn't give anyone the right,
Exactly.
And that was really hard for me to understand. Like, yes, I wasn't supposed to be drinking that night. Yes, I wasn't supposed to be at a hotel room with older men, and I was, and it still did not give them permission. But that's how I validated it.
Yeah. Oh, 100%.
I didn't tell anyone.
Yeah, because all the shame of what you did wrong is going to be just put on blast.
Right.
And it'd be easier to just not, like, why were you at a hotel room with them?
Right.
Like, why did you, like, with the second one, it's like, there were other people in my house, and if I would have just screamed really, really loud, like, someone probably, like, I don't know, we were all wasted, but I'm thinking that someone maybe would have, like, at least stirred awake and scared him off, right? And it's the fact that it would have been that easy does still freaking kill me a little bit. But it did not give him the right to do what he did to me still. And at that point, I was already internalizing it. Like, this person wakes up on top of me, and if I scream really loud, like, then I just kept thinking of all the shame that would be put on him. And I was protecting him because he was a friend. It's really kind of a mind fuck.
It really is. It skews your thinking process.
It really does.
I completely understand.
Yeah.
This podcast is sponsored by BetterHelp. Without a healthy mind, being truly happy and at peace is hard. The good news is therapy works. But what is therapy exactly? Well, I'll let you know. It's whatever you want it to be. Maybe you're not feeling motivated right now and you'd like some tools to help. Or maybe you're feeling insecure in a relationship or at work. Maybe not dealing with stress well. Whatever you need, it's time to stop being ashamed of normal human struggles and start feeling better, because you deserve to be happy. And now you don't have to worry about finding an in-person therapist near you to help. BetterHelp is customized online therapy that offers video, phone, and even live chat sessions with your therapist, so you don't have to see anyone on camera if you don't want to. It's much more affordable than in-person therapy, and you can start communicating with your therapist within 48 hours. Join the millions of people that are seeing what online therapy is really about. It's always a good time to invest in yourself, because you are the greatest asset. And there's a special offer to Recovery Captured listeners. Get 10% off of your first month of professional therapy at betterhelp.com/recoverycaptured. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/recovery captured. Thanks again to BetterHelp for sponsoring this podcast.
Okay, so, after blaming ourselves, what occurred after this?
So I guess I was 22 then. At 23, I started dating a great guy, which was one of this guy's friends, actually. So that's another reason why I was like, never tell anybody ever, because this guy's in our friend circle and friends with my husband. Oh yeah. So yeah. Anyways, at 23, I get pregnant with my first daughter. At 24, I get married to her father, right? And then we have another kid, and so what? I'm like 26, have 2 kids, married. But this whole time, my mental health is just like steadily declining. And then at like 29, my mental health, I'm just in a bad spot. And it's very clear. I'm like, I think like my hormones are messed up. Like, I think something's wrong with me. Like, what is going on?
Mm-hmm.
So I went to therapy. And then again, since it's bipolar, I'm like, went to therapy like for like just a few sessions. And then counselor's like, oh no, you're good now. I'm like, cool, I guess I'm healed or something. And then I also like didn't want to talk about the first trauma because I'm like, I've already processed it, I've already done the EMDR, like it's not that, something else is going on with me. And then I stopped going to counseling with that therapist like really quickly after. And then at 29, I end up I get raped again by a coworker. Really similar, like I should not have been wasted with a coworker while my husband was out of town. I shouldn't have let him help me take me home, like, or back to the hotel for the work trip, like walk me home. Like I shouldn't have been where I was. I shouldn't have been in the situation I was. Like all this internalized everything. But I straight up just lied about it, right? Like I'm married to somebody else, right? Like how do you bring that forward, right? But my husband he didn't find out that happened, but like saw a text message between me and this guy. And he's like, oh my God, you're having an affair. And I'm just like, yeah. Because that's so much easier to own up to than what really happened. And so we start going to couples counseling, and then I start going to individual counseling, and this time I see it through, right? Because while I am going through my cycles of getting better, getting worse, getting better, getting worse, up and down, we're going through couples counseling this whole time to try to fix our marriage. And so I don't get the luxury of just stopping when things are good, because I have my husband there as more of that stable continuity of like, no, things are maybe good right this second, but they're going to get bad again. And like, he knows, right? Like this, we're going to deal with this type of stuff again. And so I stick through counseling enough times for my therapist to say something cyclical is going on here. And I think it's more than just your PTSD. I think it's more than just, well, and at this point too, I'm only owning up to one rape back at 17 years old, and I'm 29, right? So, and I've processed it. So they're like, oh, I think it's more than just past trauma, even though I'm sure that plays a part, but like there's some other stuff going on. So she refers me to a psychiatrist. And within like 20 minutes, he's like, you have bipolar disorder. Like, it's so classic. Like, he was like, how could you not have been like recognized before? And I tell him like, well, I had PTSD. He's like, okay, so those symptoms do make sense. And he's like, and I'm seeing you, like 10 years later than these other people saw you. So I have 10 more years of history to go through, but it's very clear that you have bipolar disorder. So I got diagnosed and put on medication, and it helped a ton. It really did. So, that's kind of when I count my recovery from bipolar disorder. I have had mood episodes since, like medication is not a silver bullet. We have changed my medication a bunch of times. And I mean, even just, what was it? What year is it? 2022. So like this time last year, like May, June 2021, I had a major mood episode where I was hypomanic and then fell right off into a deep depression and really clawed my way out of it. So, it hasn't been perfect healing from that at all.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that was, I guess, that was in what, 2017, that's all going on. And yeah, by 2019 I had gotten diagnosed with bipolar disorder. And so I kind of just thought that I could keep repressing the memories of those other two traumas, own up to the one trauma. So I was doing trauma work, right? And yeah, I didn't like talk about all the trauma, but I had truly forgotten it. And I repressed the other thing too. Like my brain, and now I've trained my brain is so good at anything really traumatic, just being completely shut down and repressed.
Mm-hmm.
Like at this point, like those neural pathways are strong. And so I have to like really work on like not just completely disassociating and forgetting things that are bad.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought that, I could do trauma work. I thought I could get on the bipolar medicine and keep going to therapy and keep doing couples counseling. I thought I would be fine. I really did. And that's when, so that was February 2019. And then by September of 2020, like things were not right within me. I just knew it. It wasn't right. And so I kind of came clean a little bit about like a little bit more of what happened with my coworker, but at the same time, like I was internalizing everything and I didn't know how to talk about it. I didn't know how to put words to it. Like someone asked me, like, so I just told my husband, like I slept with someone else, right? And he's like, like, what the hell? And he's like, what were you thinking before you made that choice? And I couldn't answer that question at all. And so he thinks that I'm just like completely like bullshitting him, right? But I could not answer that question. And him asking me that question really sparked something and made it dig deeper. And I kept thinking, why do I feel like I felt when I was 17 and in Holland? Like I could not wrap my brain around like what really happened to me in any way. And now I know I couldn't answer the question, what was I thinking? Because I didn't make that choice.
Mm-hmm.
I did not consent ever. But I truly did not even understand at that point what, after so much sexual trauma in my life at this point, I stopped even understanding what consent was.
Mm-hmm.
And then like I called my friend bawling one time and she unfortunately has some past trauma too. And I called her, I was like, I don't know what consent is. And she's like, okay, pause. Are you safe? I'm like, oh yeah, no, like my husband and I are safe. Like I know what consent is with him, but like, I don't know what does it mean to consent. And so like, I like literally Googled like, what is consent? And I'm at 32 years old, I'm Googling what is consent and realizing that like, have you seen that meme or that video of like the tea? It's like, would you give, if someone says, do you want tea? And they say no, then if you shove tea down their throat, then that's like not okay. Or
No, I haven't.
if someone's sleeping and you pour tea in their on their face, like that's not okay. It's really funny. I'll have to send it to you after. But like basically, if you like think about it as someone asking you if you want to have tea, and I never said yes to tea. I was sleeping. I was, like passed out. Like I can't say yes, I want to have tea.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So it's like, what was I thinking before I made that choice? Well, nothing, because I never made that choice.
Mm-hmm. Was your husband, did he accept this for what it was and understanding and stuff?
Well, we're still kind of working through it, I guess. Like, I did not do a good job of explaining or owning what I did, what truly happened, right? I tried to take account. That's the thing. I tried to take accountability for like the choices I made instead of, but really I'm taking on more than what I truly did, I guess, in that sense. I'm still kind of working through that. And I just told him, I said, I'm not sure I'm going to be able to heal from this while being like with you, because there's so much that I'm discovering still. I'm still like, I'm in the middle of processing a lot of this. And it's like hard for me to like share that with him, especially since I lied to him about it for so long. And I think, and that's the part that like is not accepted, is like the deceit around it. And that's on me, right? So there's a lot of things I wish I would have done differently. I wish I would have just like owned it and talked about it earlier. And I could have done something, like I could have been safe. Like this guy ended up stalking me and blackmailing me for 6 months, saying, I'll tell your husband what you did, like completely manipulating me, and really, it was really unsafe. And if I would have just worked with a counselor right away and said, like, this is what I did and laid it out for them, then somebody hearing what happened would have been like, no, that's not okay. And we need to get you safe. But instead I just internalized it and tried to fix the problem on my own and just thought I was the problem. And so I ended up lying. I mean, I really put my family in danger. Like he was threatening me and my husband, and I never told my husband about it. And I mean, I have now, but he was like, so you just didn't think that I deserved to know that someone was out there threatening me? I'm like, I was like trying to protect our relationship. I was trying to protect myself. And so if I could do it over again, I would have talked to someone right away. I would have gotten a restraining order on this guy. But if I were to do that, then it would have all been brought to the light in front of my husband, in which case I did not feel like I could do that at the time. It was kind of like asking me to blow up my family as I knew it by telling them what happened, because I didn't know if he would accept it or not. Going through what we've been through for the last 4.5 years, I realized that like he would have accepted it, but at this point it's kind of like too little too late, I think. For me to like go through therapy for over 4 years and like just be getting to this point is a little disheartening for him and for me. But yeah, it's like I actually just read something that resiliency and grit and that stuff like doesn't have a timeline. Like just because you fall down and you stay down for a really long time, it doesn't mean that you're going to stay there forever. And if you eventually do get back up, then that's grit, that's tenacity, that's resiliency. And it doesn't mean that you have to get back up within this predefined moment of time. So for me, it's like, I'm standing up now, 4.5 years later, and I'm going to work on it now, 4.5 years later. And it might be too late to go back and like change things and really like get some other pieces of my life that he stole back. But same with like the high school thing, right? I just kept being like, if I would have rebounded earlier, I could have gone back to high school. I could have graduated high school.
Right.
And so now it's like, oh, if I could have rebounded earlier, I could have saved my marriage. But I didn't. And I have to trust that that's just the process that I needed. And that's where I'm at.
I like how you mentioned there's no timeline.
Yeah.
You know, because we're in recovery.
Yeah.
We're recovered. You know, like it's a work in progress with everything. And it's going to take time. You know, it's something that occurred to us that was traumatic. We can't expect to be healed within minutes. Like that's a lot on you. And there was a lot that occurred, and a lot of, you know, it wasn't just you that was affected.
Yeah.
It was your family and stuff like that. So now we got to try to heal that as well. You know, it's not always easy to understand what a victim of sexual assault goes through.
Yeah.
You haven't experienced it. It's very hard to understand, I feel like.
And that's why I wanted to talk about this openly on a more open platform for the first time, because it's easy to victim blame. If you just heard my story at a surface level, it would be really easy to be like, who the fuck gets raped 3 times? You're the common denominator. There's obviously something, you're just trying to hide something and not own up to things. And the thing is, no, like I've been trying to own up to too much. I've been taking on too much responsibility. I've been taking on the responsibility for all 3 of these fucking assholes for too freaking long. And so it's like, I finally want to come out and say, this is what happened to me, and it wasn't my fault. And if something like that happened to anybody here listening, or to you, you know, it wasn't your fault either. And so often we just talk about trauma like, oh, trauma, it wasn't your fault, and just kind of, that's what we say. Nobody gets into what happened, what it really does to you, and how long it can really, and like it changes the course of it changes your mind, it changes you physically. It takes so much, and it takes so long to come back from it. And when you come, and then like you said, it doesn't just affect you anymore, because now my healing journey is like reverberating through my entire family. And it's not just you just come back from this type of thing. It's not like trauma happened, wasn't you realize it wasn't your fault, and then you move on. Like there's so much that goes on in between that, and sometimes it takes years, you know. And that's kind of what else I wanted to share is like, it's taken me years and years and years to try to process some of these things, but I'm glad I'm doing it now. I wish I would have done it earlier, but I'm glad I'm doing it now.
Yeah, definitely. It takes a toll on you. Absolutely. It's definitely a huge healing process that needs to occur. And sexual assault is fucking real.
And unfortunately, 1 in 4 women have gone through something like this. And that's what I told a friend before coming on this. I was like, if someone would have told me their story of like how they really did think it was their fault, because then you think like, how could someone think that was their fault? If it was truly rape, they would just like, no, it wasn't their fault, right? It's like a really easy thing to say from the outside looking in. But if someone would have told me like how they actually felt about why they thought it was their fault and how long it took them to really recover and all the aspects of the life they touched, like that would have helped me. Now that I'm not, like, I think someone on your show like used the word uniquely flawed, and I loved that. Like it would have helped me know I'm not uniquely flawed. Like so many women have gone through it. And then I think, oh my God, so many women have gone through it and they're all like living their best lives. Like, why can't I recover from this? And so recovery is possible, but it's ugly and it is hard work. But I hope that, you know, 1 in 4 women that maybe hear my story will know that they're not alone. And if it's taken you years and years and years, it's okay. And if you've been blaming yourself, that's okay too. Don't blame yourself for blaming yourself, you know, like that's the thing. I just have to forgive myself for I have to forgive myself for 2 things now. One, each of those times that it happened, I have to truly just forgive myself. Even though I didn't do anything wrong, I still have to just like care for that part of me that was there that happened to, and remind myself that there was nothing that, like, that wasn't my fault. Like, there are things I could have done differently, right? We've talked about that, but it wasn't my fault. And I have to forgive myself for not healing right away and taking my healing journey the way that it needed to happen. And I do believe that it needed to happen this way. Like, I wish it would have been easier. I wish I could have owned up to it earlier. But my brain was just so really doing a great job of protecting me. Too good of a job.
Well, that's one of your coping mechanisms. Excuse me. That's one of your coping mechanisms that you learned at such an early age, right? Yeah. That your brain just stops and protects you.
Yeah.
You know, and you mentioned like you see women healing and it's like, why can't I?
Yeah.
You know, and it's like everyone's trauma is different, you know, like everyone's story of addiction is different. Like everyone's bottom looks different, right?
Yeah.
And so everyone's recovery looks different.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, you have to be able to give yourself permission to allow your healing to be what it is. Right? Be kind and gentle to ourselves, because for so long we've been fucking assholes to ourselves. You know?
Yeah, I'm the biggest asshole myself. My friends tell me all the time, like, stop talking about my friend that way.
For real. And I feel like that shift that occurs, you know, like we got to be gentle with ourselves through this whole recovery process. We can't sit here and beat ourselves up with a hammer, put it down, pick up a feather and be gentle. Like if your kid went through this, would you be saying this to your kid? Right? Exactly. Why are you allowing it to be to you?
Yeah.
You are no different.
Yeah.
You wouldn't say this stuff that you say to yourself, to a friend, to a child, to a sister or whatever, brother. This happens interchangeably, right?
Yes, exactly. I said 1 in 4 women, but men are not excluded.
Exactly. So whatever, right? We wouldn't say it to them. Why do we give ourselves permission to say it to ourselves?
Yeah.
Like we have to be kind to ourselves.
Yeah. I agree. And that's been like one of the hardest parts, like, and knowing like that's really hard, just being kind to yourself. And then like knowing what is mine to own and like what is theirs, like what truly do I need to do better in, and like what is not my fault, and like really piecing that out. And then it like that seeps into all other aspects of my life too, like really a lot of codependency and like just a lot of like not feeling safe in any relationship, like and so trying to figure out like what is my piece to get better at and to own and to do differently, and what is the other person's piece.
Yeah, that's definitely that's blurred lines right there. Right?
Yeah,
absolutely. Seeing what's yours and seeing what's theirs and trying to differentiate that is definitely really hard to do.
it is. It's really hard. And I feel like it's really hard for like most people anyways. And then like add on like some type of addiction or trauma, and it just like exacerbates that. Yeah. So
So what do you do today to kind of keep your mental health in check, to not allow your past to dictate your present? What do you do for, self-care?
Yeah, I think, well, one thing too, I think I've been doing a pretty bad job of that lately. So I'm on here talking about recovery and I'm like, I'm in the part where I'm really struggling right at this moment. The biggest thing I can do for myself, which I need to make a priority and I try to, but it's really hard, is to get 8+ hours of sleep. I am not a type of person that can get under 8 hours of sleep. Like I turn into a freaking monster. I cry all the time. Like I need 8 hours of sleep. End of story. I journal every morning. I was just talking to my brother. I think I'm going to start journaling in the evening because I look at my journal and it's mostly like, I'm just really tired. I don't know. Like I feel like I'm not in the right headspace to like really dig in the morning. But I wanted to like start off with gratitude. So that's why I've been doing it. So I've been doing that in the morning for 2 years, but I think it could be better. So I'm going to switch to the evenings. I go to a lot of therapy. For a while, I was going to like, what was it? Between couples counseling, EMDR, and then my other therapist, I was going to 1, 2, 3, 4 hours of therapy a week, which is too much. Don't do that. If you're like, don't do that much therapy. You need to process what you're actually working on. But I'm not. So right now I'm only going to like 1 hour every week or every other week. So funny because I was like, I am really struggling right now. And I remember I was crying and I was like, I would do anything to feel better, and I think we've all felt that way with no matter what we're recovering from, like where you just like, I want this to be easier. I would do anything for it to be easier. I just want to be better. I would do anything. And I read 2 books and listened to 1 podcast talking about like cold showers and cold water therapy. And like, I kept hearing them say that. And I'm like, I'm not doing that. And so then I was like, I would do anything to be better. And then like the next podcast I listened to, just the one talking about cold water, is like, except take a cold shower. Like I'm going to start taking cold showers. So for the month of May, I've been taking cold showers. So we'll see if that actually helps or not. I don't know, but I'm willing to do anything, like even take a miserable shower in the morning.
Yeah. Good for you. That sounds awful. I'm in Vermont, so I don't want any more cold.
I know. I hate the cold. I love the sunshine, but so I'm doing that. I don't know if it's helping in any way, but at least I can say I did it. But another thing I do is like I'm around people. Like I mentioned, I have a really, really good group of friends. And so just being around my support network helps a lot. But I think there's a lot more I could be doing. That's when it's hard. Like I keep asking for help and I feel like I keep not getting better. And so it's like, what am I doing wrong? So I don't know. I think I'm just like I'm in the messy middle right now, and not that we're never recovered. Like you said, we're in recovery. We're never recovered. And I don't think this is ever something that I'm just going to like flip a switch and be over. It's like, oh, if I do X, Y, and Z for long enough and hard enough, then I'm going to be better. I don't think that will ever be the case. I think I'll just continue to grow.
Do you think there's an opportunity to be recovered?
Man, that's a deep question. Yeah, I do actually, especially I think I do. I probably don't feel it right now, but yeah.
Kind of feels hopeless when you're.
It does.
Yeah.
Yeah, but like just how far I've come with the first rape.
Yeah. So you see that there's some sort of hope, some sort of end to it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Personally, for me, if someone were to ask me that, I would say, yeah.
Yeah.
I, victim twice. And for many, many years, I would allow it to dictate my present and my future. It would ruin relationships. It would taint conversations. And I mean, excuse me, for me, EMDR literally changed my life.
Yeah.
I walked my little self out of that room.
That's beautiful.
And I haven't experienced that pain ever since.
That's incredible. Yeah, I was just saying, I think I need to go back to do EMDR for some other ones, but I've done it for the first two, but
yeah, I mean, it might not be for everyone. Like, who knows, but that's my experience. And I personally feel that I have recovered, and I don't allow it to, like, I can think about it and it's like, yeah, that fucking sucked. But I know the difference now. You know, I don't victim blame. I know, like we talked about, I know my difference in theirs. That line is not blurred for me anymore.
That's great. That's awesome.
In regards to like addiction, I believe we can be recovered. However, there's always that underlying, like, we can slip up, we can go back to that. And there's always that underlying with trauma. Like, we can put ourselves back to that mindset and that thought process. But I feel that if I'm active in my self-care, right, I don't have to get back to that point.
Yeah. I believe that. Yeah. I believe that. I do.
But it's a work in progress, right?
And it's damn hard when you're doing it. Yeah.
It is. I did, therapy myself since I was 14, like, very long process. And I had to go through a lot of trials and tribulations to get to that point, and I started later in life with certain recovery, with the eating disorder, like, it all comes at different stages.
I like to say it's like light switches. You like turn one on and then you can see a little bit further.
Exactly.
And then, like you said, we can always get back there. Like, there can be a light that flows out, that you thought that you had turned on a long time ago. And so you'd have to go back and, kind of fix that. But you're not ever starting back from like square one, right? You have like those building blocks. And so you're starting from a place, recovery is not a straight line. It's very cyclical, but as long as the trajectory is going the right way.
What's one piece of advice you want to give to our listeners?
Be honest. Be honest with yourself. With your therapist, with your loved one, your trusted loved ones, be honest. Because you can't heal if you keep pretending that you're not hurt.
And what's one thing you want to accomplish?
I want to be recovered. I want to not have this stuff kind of dictate my present or future. I want to show my kids a better way.
Is there, obviously, there's more to this question that we've talked about, but is there anything that you are aware of that you could do that you're not?
I think, well, I think I need to go back to the EMDR. I think I need to focus more on myself than those around me. I think I need to let go of certain things, relationships, in order to focus on the one I have with myself.
And what are 3 affirmations that you have?
One, I just had a conversation with my therapist. I'm like, feels like I'm like lying to myself when I give affirmations like, I am calm, I am at peace. I'm like, I'm not calm, not at peace. So it just feels like I'm lying to myself. But I try to the one that's like, I am loving, I'm a good person, because I truly do believe that. But sometimes I forget that I am loving and I am a good person. and I'm caring.
Mhm.
And I care about people so deeply that sometimes it comes out scary.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
It does.
Okay. Like I care so deeply that it's like, I care so much. And they're like, what?
Oh. And lastly, where can our listeners find you if they would like to seek out any help or assistance or a chat?
Yeah, so I'm on Instagram at sobernboise. We really didn't even touch on the sober piece of the journey, but I have been sober for a long time, and my sobriety is more just to help me recover from other things. And that's the biggest piece of self-care that I do, actually, is stay sober. Is by far the biggest self-care that I do. So I run the Sober in Boise Instagram at sober, the letter N, Boise. And then you can reach me at sobernboise@gmail too. I have another Instagram page that I might start posting like more about specifically mental health. It's Sunday Night Likes, but I'm not very active on there yet. But that's another thing I want to accomplish is being a little bit more vocal there. And like, so I have like the sober piece and then the mental health piece as well. Those both are very important to me.
Yeah, well, maybe this will be your little push to
Yeah,
start
there you
that
go.
there.
Yeah.
And I'll make sure to put your handles in the description and stuff like that.
Awesome.
But I just wanted to thank you so much for coming on. I really appreciate you being vulnerable and sharing your story. And I know it's going to help multiple people because it's definitely.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Of course. And we'll do another episode so we can talk about the sobriety part too. Because
yes, absolutely. I know we barely even so much to go through. So yes, let's do it. I would love that.
We'll do round 2.
Okay.
All right.
Sounds great.
We out.